false light deception video that you had done that you really spoke to. And I thought you did such a great job. We hear it in terms of things like soul recycling and, other ways of expressing it. But I thought you did such a great job of really explaining how this happens, how we get stuck in this matrix loop. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
I would love to talk about that.
Fabulous.
Yeah. So in all these ancient systems, you see one way or another. I resonate. I think it's also quite common now in the spiritual community, at least, to refer to as samsara.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We have these ancient systems that convey one way or another a form of there being, let's call it a spiritual amnesia that places the individual or the soul unit in repeated cycles. And so one could look at that as karma, but specifically what you're speaking to right now is like karma with a twist. It's there's a nefarious nature with this recycling belief system that I think we can trace back to perhaps Gnosticism. And so, and I'm not saying that was a Gnostic belief per se, but where its roots or origins are, definitely Gnostic. What that spiritual system is portraying is the fact that the more a being is in a state of amnesia and to themselves, so it's a spiritual amnesia, is the more that a being is having their free will revoked within the larger scheme of things, the free will to consciously not come back to earth or consciously come back to earth, consciously go to wherever their soul stream or higher self feels called to go to or not. And that instead of that conscious decision that comes from a soul's free will, that instead there's this amnesia placed over the soul that forces them to be recycled back into the earth school or earth realm. And then that could come with whatever belief systems that are privy at either that time period or to that being individually. Meaning if it's more of the school of thought of, oh, you have to help earth, then that could be the special, system placed over the being once they're in that state of spiritual amnesia. So you could look at it almost like, I know this is very bleak, but like a soul memory, not just the soul memory being completely wiped. And then from there, you could create whatever story you need to insert or imprint on that being. And so one of them could even be just the fact that you have to. It's karmic duty. You have to. That's why in one of my videos, it's, are we forced to come to earth or do we plan our lives? I talk about how a being might heal to the point in one lifetime by accessing so much free will that they might not resonate with the concept of karma at all. And they might fly away. And so that is also because I speak to a very large audience that come from different beliefs. So I'm trying to speak in different terminology to each, touch upon each. But yeah, so it depends on the person's own resonance, what that thing that gets imprinted on them is. This concept is not just like a new age, like horror story. Right. This is actually quite an ancient horror story. Yeah. It's not like new age folklore. Right. We want to scare ourselves around a campfire. It's also like, I've heard it portrayed, what I call it is the net, because it's known as catching souls before they're able to build up enough velocity, enough consciousness to catapult outside of the density of Earth. So it's portrayed as a net. I didn't sleep at night when I found out about the net.
Oh, you poor thing.
Yeah. It's also been known in esoteric Christianity as the eighth sphere. Yeah, I could go on. There's basically a bunch of different spiritual systems that all, one way or another, are speaking to this type of recyclization against one's free will into back into the false light.
Right. Right. Gosh. Yeah, you do a fabulous job of being able to articulate it in a diverse way that isn't intimidating. And I truly appreciate that about your explanations, because these are hard things to have conversations around. And because there is so much confusion with, so many different ways of referencing the same thing, people check out. They get very confused. It feels overwhelming. I know when I started my journey into trying to piece all this together and make sense of it, had I had someone like you to reference, it would have been amazing. I would have been like, oh, this makes things so easy. So I really appreciate your ability to communicate this information and reach the larger masses.
Thank you. I mean, that's the work. I'm constantly synthesizing in a way when I'm receiving the information and when I'm compiling it in a way where I'm like, how do I sell it?
Yeah.
And I don't mean sell it in like a, I need your money way. I mean like how do I sell this so that they have the right amount of fear? I'm not over here trying to sugarcoat things, but I don't put them into powerlessness. I don't put them into hopelessness. And that's a part of the journey. I've been in powerlessness and hopelessness so many times. So if somebody falls into powerlessness or hopelessness, it's not my fault.
Right.
but also I truly get great fulfillment from raising people into their sovereignty. And so when I deliver these concepts, I do the best I can constantly to go, how can I say this in a way where they're mature enough to handle it, but that I'm also not taking their power? Right.
So in your opinion, I mean, and I'm assuming that in your opinion, we get out of this, right? Like there is a way out. Come on, Sarah, give me some good.
No, I never said we get out. Just kidding. Absolutely. That's what spiritual sovereignty does, because honestly, like a hermetic term is mind. I'm not a fan of the term mind because I equate it with mental monkey mind activity. But in truth, mind is this name bestowed onto the consciousness streams that are emitting from the nothingness, really, that dance between the ecstatic state and the empty state. And so from that point of view, mind is just creative energy, creative essence. And that's what we are.
Right.
So spiritual sovereignty is what allows a being to truly come from love. And the fruits of love, how you know a being is sovereign, if they're internally sovereign, the external emanation of that is freedom. So if you are internally your own monarch, meaning you are in your proper state of you're your own authority, that external projection is going to be one of freedom because that's just the inherent alignment of these cosmos. So that freedom has more byproducts, and that freedom is expansiveness. And specifically, it just can be called that freedom is love. And so when a being expands enough outside of, all of these different spheres that we go through, then they're untouchable from these, oh no, you're going to get recycled if it gets wiped, or, oh, you can't pass through the net. Well, yeah, if you're a weak spirit.
Right.
If you're in your spiritual sovereignty, you have enough, what's called, Robert Monroe coined the term escape velocity. That's a physics term.
Ooh.
Naturally that sound, blame physics. I didn't say it's escape velocity. But the escape velocity, which means the enough energy to vibrate beyond the fear realms or the belief systems lower than love, is that buildup. The escape velocity is consciousness, which is love. So love, literally, like I'm trying to make love sound scientific because it sounds, too woo all the time, but love is literally the escape velocity in order order to catapult a being into higher states of consciousness, aka above all of these different, very real spiritual systems of belief. And they're real, but also even they taught their own ways in mysticism, how to navigate, how to traverse through them.
Okay.
So absolutely, like whether a being wants to focus their energy here on earth to making the world a better place, or whether a being just wants to, you know, anchor in a higher consciousness past the net, they're one and the same. So no matter what, a being will need to be in their sovereignty.
So this is where we can take the age of Aquarius and pull that in, and that is actually really supporting us in terms of humanity's evolutionary process to really have the ability to embrace that creativity and step into that more feminine essence, which ultimately will free us.
Absolutely. Yeah, the age of Aquarius is like what you could look at as like the revelations. And so Revelations was painted a certain way to control a certain narrative. But in reality, Revelations was truly the fact that we are, the revealing is that we're source. So that narrative needed to get controlled in advance so that certain timelines would be created. No, the age of Aquarius is revelations, and revelations is that we are source experiencing source.